Hello, beautiful people. Hi, blah, 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 blah. Hello, beautiful people. This is Hey Stella with Mihaela. Hello, beautiful people. This is Hey Stella with Mihaela. My name is Mihaela Mihut. I am a proud lifetime member of the Actors Studio and an international acting coach. I am so excited to bring to you every week an episode that deals with the professionals who must deal with life in depth, the actors. I am excited. As you know, every episode I like to talk about the professionals, the actors, like I say in the introduction, who are the most responsible to deal with life in a way that many of us might not have to in everyday life. Well, unfortunately, this week, more specific last night, there was an announcement that an accident happened with the actor Alec Baldwin, who was filming. He was on set filming a movie, and the prop gun went off. Two people were injured. One, the director, is injured and is in the hospital, from what I understand, and the director of cinematography, this beautiful young woman, 42 years old, was killed. How is this possible? How can this happen? Alec Baldwin is, I know Alec Baldwin. I don't think he knows me. Let me explain what I mean by that. He is one of the moderators often to come to the actor studio before the pandemic, before everything closed. He was one of the moderators to have come to sessions at the actor studio. And I happened to work in front of him a couple of times. But the one time that I remember the most is one particular session. I signed up for that particular session to work as an actress, even though I'm only an acting coach and I base what I do lately on training and working with actors. I've given acting to the side, but what I love to do, I do put myself in the shoes of the actress because I don't want to lose sight of what the same actors that I try to help in creating their characters, I don't want to lose sight of what they must go through. It's one thing to be an acting coach or to be a teacher that talks about acting, and it's another thing when you actually put it in practice. So whenever I have an opportunity, being privileged to be a lifetime member of the Actor Studio, I would sign up and decide that I want to work on a specific character on the stage of the Actor Studio, where other professionals in the acting business who are members of the Actor Studio, they come and they make the audience. In front, on the first row of the Actor Studio, there's a chair that's assigned for the moderator. They have moderators from Al Pacino to Ellen Burstyn to Harvey Keitel to Melissa Leo to Michael Aronov to, over the years, I can't think of everyone. But one of them, and a really great moderator, is Alec Baldwin. So like I said, I was privileged to work in front of him. One particular time that I remember details, it's so funny because this shirt says something to that effect. What do you do when in the moment right now, I don't have the flow of what I want to share with you? Other times I can't stop talking, but right now I feel like my brain is going into different directions and all my thoughts are not coming out the way that I want to. You admit it to yourself. Exercise for actors, exercise that can be used for any other person. Admit to yourself that your thoughts are not coming to you as you expected, even though you were very enthusiastic about doing this episode or doing something, a project. Admitting it. And then you go back. Where did I leave off? I left off with the thought of Alec Baldwin, the sad accident that just happened on the set of his film. I actually, before it happened, before the news came out yesterday, he actually posted a picture on Instagram of him dressed in the character that he was playing with a fake blood stain on his shirt. very soon after, the news came on that the accident of the director of cinematography, this beautiful 42-year-old woman, was shot, and the director was also shot. He survived. She's dead with a prop gun. I don't know what else we're going to find out about that. I don't know anything about how that's possible. I was not aware that prop guns can kill people. So this is very strange and very new to me, and I will see the details that come out. But going back to the session of the Actor Studio and him being a moderator, the session that I was working on was the play, the very short play of Anton Chekhov. Anton Chekhov, the play, The Bear. It is a 20-page, 25-page long play, not very long. It starts with the character that I play, Elena, and Smirnov. Elena is in the beginning of the play mourning her husband, who from the story you understand had passed. She's mourning him. She's looking at a picture, and she has this whole monologue beginning with, "Oh, Mihailovich, I loved you so much. I miss you. I will never leave the house again. Now that you're gone, my life has no meaning. I have loved you so much. You freaking bastard. I hate you so much. You are a monster. You are a pig. Don't try to apologize. Your apology does nothing for me right now. It's too late." And then while she's mourning and she's going through this ups and downs, one minute she loves him, and the other minute she says, "You were a monster, and you were a pig, and you were a cheater," there's a knock on the door. The knock on the door happens. Luca, who's the third character in the play, who's played by an old man, he goes to open the door. Luca knows, since he's been with Elena for a long time, that right now she wants to see nobody because she's in mourning for her husband. She's trying to show the women of the village that she's a decent woman, and no matter, she doesn't want to let out that her husband was a cheater and he was a jerk and he was a bastard. So she's going to comport herself with dignity, with respect, and she's going to do the right thing, which is to mourn him as if he was a decent man, even though he was not. So she tells Luca not to let anybody come in. The knock on the door happens, and it's constant. Knock, 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 knock. "Who could that be?" she says to Luca. "I'm not expecting any visitors." Knock, 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 insistent, doesn't go away. There's no choice for Luca, for the servant, to go, but to go and see who it is. He goes, he opens the door, and there is this guy that Luca doesn't know. So he's not part of the village, he's not part of the community. So Luca says, "Madame is indisposable. She will not see you, sir. So please call on her at a different time, because right now she's actually celebrating 6 months from her husband's death. So she doesn't want to be bothered with anything." The man says, "I'm sorry to hear that, but I am here on important matters, and I regret that this is a bad time for me to come in, but I need to see her. Let me in." Elena hears, my character that I'm playing, hears the commotion at the door, and she goes to see how dare this man doesn't take the instructions that were given by her to the servant and for him to leave. She goes, he passes by Luca, since he's an aggressive man, comes in. "Hello, madame. My name is Nikolai Mihailovich Smirnov." If I'm butchering the name, that's fine. It's something like that. It doesn't even matter, because I'm not saying exactly like word for word what the play is about. As my podcast, I'm telling you my interpretation of it. As it is always my opinion when I talk on the podcast, it is always my remembrance of sessions. It's my perception of what happened and how everything went. So he comes in. She has no other choice but to receive him. First of all, I apologize for the passing of your husband, but I am here because I had given your husband oats. I sold him oats, and he owes me money that he has not paid for a long time. But I am here to collect, and says, "I'm here for the money." I don't have the money. Besides that, I am in a state of mind right now that does not permit me to deal with financial situations. So if you don't mind, can you please go and come back at a different time? I beg you. Sir, please. He says, I'm sorry. My situation is a grave one. The reason why I need to collect this money today is because my entire life, my whole farm is going to be taken away if I don't receive the money that is owed to me so I can pay to my loaners. So this whole conversation between the two of them, her trying to get him out and having him come back at a different time, he doesn't want to leave, is all we have in the beginning. What happens during the rest of the play is that she is starting to recognize that she's kind of attracted to the fact that he doesn't want to leave, and he stands his ground for getting what he deserves. She's starting to look at him in a different way, and she's starting to fall for him. Handsome, tall, doesn't want to put up with whatever she's saying. It's kind of intriguing, you know, when you think about it. Like if you do analysis of any person or any character, imagine if you had somebody come to your house and would do the same thing without getting violent, but would not want to leave. By the end of the whole play, where the situation goes to, which is so much higher stakes are happening, she provokes him to a duel. Talk about the stakes having to be high to create dramatic effect in a play or in a film. The life or death situation, that is, we're going to have a duel. And of course, she goes to bring the pistols, making it seem that she knows how to use them. And then when she brings them down and she says, okay, sir, but before we can actually do the duel, would you mind helping me and showing me how they work? How do they work, the pistols? I don't know how they work. We never had pistols, thank God, now that I'm thinking of what's happening on this, with this accident. We never got to the point. We did a play at the Actor Studio a couple of times in different sessions, but we never got to the pistols, thank God. We didn't get to it because we never got it to the point where we finished the entire play, because there's so much to be discovered of what happens between these two people. So, of course, when he goes behind her back and tries to show her how to hold a hand and to point the pistol, and their closeness and they're feeling each other, they look at each other, they realize that this whole playfulness was actually a romantic coming together. How is it called? My God, talk about not having the words for it and still not giving up, still doing the episode even if I don't have the words. Oh, I don't know. This is driving me insane because I don't know how to call it. Going back to make you understand how the session works. This is the play, right? So we have the play. When we sign up as actors to work in session, what we do is we decide that we want to work on something. The first question that they ask you, what are you going to work on? Even before you go to do it, before you go to put yourself on stage and to try to figure out what you want to work on, when you send a note to them before and you say, I would like to work in session, and they say, yes, we have available time. What are you working on? So when you say, I'm working on Elena from The Bear by Chekhov, you tell them the title, you give them the play, but then they want to know, what are you working on specifically? That's the method acting. What are you working on? I'm going to work on the moment before the play begins. I am trying to give myself a situation that is outside of the play, that is going to then, when I try it in an improvisation on my feet in practice, will lead into the beginning of the play and will help with how the characters behave and why do they behave a certain way. So my partner and I, my other actor who was playing Smirnov, and I said, Alec Baldwin is going to be moderating we have done a scene from the play. It hasn't really gotten, we didn't really get too much out of it. We didn't discover too much about these two people, because that's what you want to do as an actor. You try to discover the complexity and the three dimension that these people are. You can't just look at them and say they're just characters. So, you know, this is what happens in the play. You have to go between the lines. You have to go to imagining what's their backstory. Did they maybe somehow meet before? Even though the play doesn't give you that directly, but you have to find all these clues, and you have to find that like a private detective. You know, when I say that actors are also like detectives, they're like policemen, and they have to have this training that is observation, the training of psychology into people, the analysis of a situation. Because you have to go and you have to find everything that is between the lines, and what happens before the play or the movie even starts, what happens before the script. So we decided that we were going to do an improvisation, because we thought for sure the two of them, from the lines that are in the play, they are smart enough, the two characters, and the play is like so funny, that we thought, my partner actor and I, we thought that they might have seen each other, or maybe that could be a possibility that they might have met each other, and that Smirnov, even though he pretends not to know that the husband is dead, he knows that the husband is dead, and he saw her prior. He probably saw her somewhere. He liked the woman, knowing that she's a widow, and now he comes with the pretend that her husband owes him something, but he wants to come and get to know her, and he doesn't know which other way to come into her life, because being only 6 months after the husband died, in those times you don't go to call on a widow to say, I want to get to know you because I think you're beautiful. Because by the end of the play, that same important loan that he says that he needs in order to save his farm and his land, it doesn't matter to him anymore. So he's not trying to get the money from her when the whole romance between the two starts. So how can something be so important, and then you actually get for her to like you, and you achieve that, which is what the objective is, the goal is attained by the end of it? Then what happened to, oh, this is so important to me? So we said they must have met somewhere, or maybe let's just try to figure out, did they meet somewhere before? And is this play like a game that's happening between the two of them, where she doesn't want to let on, she might have met him before, but she doesn't want to let on in front of the servant, because the servant might go and tell the whole village, oh my God, you know what Elena, the respected, dignified woman that we all thought her to be, is doing? She's already allowing this caller to come in 6 months after her husband's death. So this is an interpretation that I have never seen done in any other productions that I've watched, because I've watched so many productions. This play is being done, if you look it up on YouTube, it's being done in every country, in every language, and they do it so strict to what the lines are, it doesn't do anything. And I just think that Anton Chekhov, is so much more about the subtext, and he's so much more about these kinds of in between the lines and discoveries between these people. And it was so exciting to us, to myself and to my partner who played the other character, to give ourselves the circumstance to figure out if there's something that's going to be discovered, if we just give ourselves the permission to figure out, did they meet somewhere? This is what we did. We take the information that's given to us by Chekhov in the play. So we know that the husband passed. The husband is in a cemetery. As I am from a village in Transylvania, I kind of understand Russian behavior because it's very similar. I mean, from those parts of the world, we all kind of do the same traditional rituals when it comes to death and birth and everything else. So I took what I knew about the village where I come from, and I imagined it to be within a distant walk from the house where the people lived to the cemetery. And I said, what if it's one of the days where I happen to, as the character, visit the grave of my husband as the villagers would expect me to do, because I'm trying to stay, when you live in a village, you don't want to have gossip about you. Gossip about you in any way that's negative is not good. You're trying to remain, especially for women. It's like, it doesn't matter how the husband treated you. And there's this element too. It's like the treatment of the husband from what she says. Do we know it to be true? Because just because a character says something, it doesn't mean that that's the truth. We say a lot of things. But I would think he did do all those things where he cheated on her, and because that's what most men do in those days, and especially in the village where I grew up, there was a lot of that going on, and a lot of drinking involved before everybody knew that there was like a problem with alcohol, and that's called you're an alcoholic, and you can actually try to get rid of it because it's a disease, or try to go to meetings which were non-existent. So there's so much in this like 20 pages play that has to do with humanity from 100 and some years ago, from Chekhov to now. The same problems and the same elements of our humanity still giving us clues about how to live to become better as people. That's what makes this place so brilliant, is because they are still as relatable to our modern times as they were so many years ago. So having said that, the only thing that we talked about with my actor partner the night before was the place that we are going to set up to be on stage is going to be a cemetery. It is the cemetery where I buried my husband. The stage is going to become a cemetery. I am going to visit my husband. It's one of her visitations to her husband's grave, to go and take flowers as it's expected of her. So my actor friend said to me, are we going to set up the place? That's another thing that you have to have a conversation with the person that you're doing a scene. How are we going to set up the cemetery? And then you know what we said? No, we're going to leave the stage empty. So I'm giving so much away for those of you who are out there trying to, I don't know, do this play, or maybe it's giving you insight into like other things that you are doing, but you haven't really gone deep into them to analyze and to figure out what else is there, because there's so much to it, and it makes you so much more excited to be working on a character when you're like not knowing everything, and you're not just going by the very strict base of what the script is. So then we said, why don't we make it a little bit more practical and give ourselves something to work with by allowing our imagination and our senses to be involved? What do you mean by that? Let's leave the stage empty. Let's not bring anything. No props, nothing. How are we going to create a place? Well, how do we create the place? What are you going to work on? Do you remember the first question that was asked? I'm going to work on the moment before the play happened, one of those imaginary scenes that I want to try for myself to see what else I can find about the character that's not given by Chekhov in the play. The second answer to the question, what else are you going to work on? We're going to use sensory work. We're going to use our senses to create the cemetery on a blank stage. How do you do that? And it still blows my mind. The majority of the actors do not know that the work with your senses is at the base of great acting, because you cannot do without it. So how do you do that in practice? How do you specifically work to create a cemetery when there's nothing there? The day of the session comes, going back to Alec Baldwin, we were so excited that he was going to be there. I did not say anything to my partner outside of what I just told you. That's what's going to happen. You do whatever you want. I'm going to visit my grave of my husband. I'm going to take flowers. I'm going to use my senses to create the stage and make it seem believable for Alec Baldwin and for the other people that is a cemetery. I don't think that Alec Baldwin knows me, but I will definitely bet. I am willing to bet that he will remember this, because it was one of those moments, and he made a remark at the end of it, which I will tell you as I go on. The morning of the session comes, get up, get my long black dress that I put on. I get my babushka that I'm gonna wear, because Romanian women, when they go to church or in the cemetery that surrounds the church, they are usually covered. And I buy some flowers on my way to the actor studio from one of the places in Manhattan. I get there, I start to shake. I am so nervous about the whole thing. I am so freaking out. I'm like, oh my God, the brain is going to, I don't know what I'm doing now. How dare do I think that I'm going to be able to create and work on these two things that I propose for myself to work on? It's not going to work. It's going to be horrible. And then as I hear the audience come up, I'm backstage. I hear the audience. I hear the other members who are the audience come up. And then the last one that comes up is the moderator that happens to be the moderator that day. In this particular case, Alec Baldwin takes his place. And then what he does, he says, he turns to the audience because he's in the first row, and he says, first is the bear, Chekhov, Mihaela Mihuts, and this other actor, the name. Boom, silent. I'm backstage and I'm shaking. I'm actually like physically shaking. I'm like, okay, that was my cue. Should I go in? We never talked with my other actor who was going to go first, who was going to go second. Are we going to go in at the same time? And that's what's so amazing about the actor studio, because you get to do all this work where you don't set up everything. You don't give yourself a strict map of how to do things, because if you do that, then it's just two people saying things without meaning them, without finding the personal involvement in you to bring to those characters. Your personal stuff, your essence as an actor, is what the character needs. So that thought happened as I was being nervous backstage, and I said, oh my God, I'm nervous as the actress. Why wouldn't she be nervous as a character? She'd be nervous because all this way up to where she is right now, before entering the cemetery, probably people were staring at her and they were wondering about her. Is she loyal to her husband? Is she just pretending that she wants to be loyal and show that she respected him? Is that why she's going to the grave, to the cemetery? As I'm doing this, all of these inner thoughts are happening in Romanian, because that's my first language. That's the language that I think in. That's my first language. That's where I was born. I was born in Romania, and what was taught to me as my first understanding of any kind of words and syllables and letters was Romanian. So I said to myself backstage, why wouldn't she be talking to herself as she's walking, trying to get herself to calm down? Because she has all these eyes of the people over their fences looking at her. Does she look happy? Does she look sad? Is she with somebody? I don't know what they're thinking, but it matters a lot what the villagers think of you when you live in a village. I mean, that's the most important thing. Or as the daughter of a priest, my dad's a priest, and my mom working at church and being surrounded always by church and by my parents, and the way that my sister and I had to be very aware in the way that we were comporting ourselves, in the way that we dressed when we went to church, in the way that we behaved in church, because all eyes were on us. And people were so ready to be able to talk about if they noticed something that was negative, or, oh, the dress is too short, or did you see her hair, or did you see this? So we were an example for the community. So I just felt that informed the way that I, as Elena, walked in. So as I walk in, I go in, and as I got on stage, I got on stage, I'm holding the flowers, and I'm realizing that I'm not speaking out my thoughts. And at the corner of my eye, I see Alec Baldwin. And I'm like, oh my God, to myself, without giving voice to my thoughts, I said, this is not working. I have to go out and I have to come back again. As an actress, I didn't feel that I was ready. So it wasn't as the character, but I didn't say it. It was as an actress, I'm not ready. You know what? go back out, go backstage. So I went and I finished the semicircle, came in this way, saw Alec Baldwin. Go out, Miha. Give yourself permission to go out. Don't stay set. Just because you step your foot on the stage, it doesn't mean that you have to be stuck there. Go out. So when I walked out, they never saw that coming. And they started laughing. The audience and Alec Baldwin started laughing. As I found myself backstage, I was like, oh my God, why are they laughing? They were laughing because I made a decision in the moment. I made a human decision to accept, the awareness of the moment, of the detail, and to make it into reality. So I accepted that. If I would have pushed that truth that was happening with me, the actress, if I were to have pushed that to the side, and I would have obligated myself because I'm on stage to be on stage, because I said I was just going to come and I was going to be on stage. That's how I anticipated that I was going to do the thing. It would have been a disaster because the truth would not have been there to begin with. My truth of being scared, I'm not ready, would not have been paid attention to. So I would have started on a false note. That's what it is. I would have started on a false note and all the other notes would have been false. My going outside meant that I gave myself the permission to accept my thoughts, live in the moment, be scared that I wasn't going to do the anticipated thing, but surprise myself in a moment. This is how you're feeling. Go outside, get prepared again, and come in. And that decision I made was a spontaneous, instinctual, organic decision. And those are the decisions that will win awards and will make you then put yourself on the right path and have much more of a chance of being moment to moment in the work with the partner. Went out backstage, heard them still laughing. I couldn't believe it. And then this time I said to myself, if I'm still scared, talk to yourself. You're talking to yourself in Romanian all the time. They don't know the difference between Russian and Romanian. I mean, I wouldn't know the difference between languages that I don't know. So who's to say that this woman in their minds is not speaking Russian? If I believe myself that that's the way that I'm speaking, I'll make them believe that that's what it is. So the second time around, I'm holding the flowers and I'm going in, looking at the empty stage. And I talk to myself. I said, you know what, Elena, the character's name, you're so good if you just leave yourself alone and you just go with the moment. Even if you do wrong, and even if this whole session is going to be really bad, it's not like anybody's going to lose their life. So just go on and figure out what you're going to do this time. But everything was said in Romanian. So what I was doing, I was cheering myself on as the actress to not give up and to not be afraid of going on and discovering what comes next, with the chance of having the whole thing collapse. And as I was saying that, okay, acum, now you're gonna be in front of the stage. So you just got to the stage and there's no anything on the stage. How are you gonna know where to go? How are you gonna create the cemetery? What are you doing? I'm looking all around to try to figure out, and using my imagination and using my sight to be able to create for myself and to visualize something from my life that I can recognize, which is the cemetery where my grandparents in Romania are both buried. And they're the grandparents that I had because they raised me from the time that I was 3 months old until I started school when I was 7. And then every vacation I went and I spent with them. As soon as I allowed myself to link that personal known cemetery from Romania, I placed their headstone to be at a certain distance. And then I remember from my visiting their cemeteries that I had to walk through some other graves. and I would not dare to step on other graves. You do not step on other graves. As I was going, I created these lines, invisible lines, but to me were so real because I was seeing different headstones, and I was trying to walk in between them and holding the flower. So by giving the brain something concrete to occupy it with, I forgot about the audience. I didn't care that Alec Baldwin was there. I didn't care that I was going to be bad as an actress. When you give your brain something to work on, and that's where the question, what are you working on? You have no way out but to be working moment to moment. Your focus, your brain focuses on that, which is what the concentration is on. And as I was walking, being so careful that I don't step on any other graves. So as I was walking, looking at the lines, there was this silence, which means that you know that you have the audience in your hand. But you have the audience in your hand when you don't try to have them in your hand, when you're playing to them, when you're trying to be funny, when you're trying to capture them. Most of the time you can't. So it's when you forget about them by way of concentration and by way of giving yourself something to work with sensorially, that's when they come along with you, because you're giving yourself the permission to create that world that you know personally and the one that you're now creating for yourself. So you're combining the two. I'm walking, I'm going through all these imaginary, but in my soul I could see these graves of people from the village. Some of them I recognized on the headstone, and I gave myself enough time to allow for the headstone of my grandparents. Got to that headstone, I kneel down, I take my hand, and using the sense of touch, I trace with my hand the head stone. And then with the tips of my fingers, I can feel the letters that are engraved. I trace the entire and something just got stirred up inside of me because of this one moment that I went back to, and I had never remembered that moment until that day. And the flowers that I had placed on the floor on the bare stage when I got there, before using my hands to actually trace his name, I open my eyes and I look at the flowers and I pick them up, and I'm imagining, as the grave of my grandfather is, that there's dirt. You can just make a hole in the dirt and you can actually place the flowers in the dirt. So I'm using my hand to scoop the dirt, not the dirt, but the floor of the actor studio, which you can't scoop it. But in my imagination, I was feeling the dirt. I was feeling that I was scooping it. So in my mind, when I went to place the flower and to put dirt around them so they would be held up, I did that and I put them together. But then of course that was in my imagination, that was my creation, because the reality, there was nothing on that stage. And when I let go of the flowers, they fell because there was no dirt around it, and everybody starts laughing. I could hear the whole audience start laughing, and that took me by surprise, because for me that moment was something that was not a funny moment. But because I allowed myself to do my own reality, paying specific attention to the details, the reality for me was so in the moment, and it was so 1000% real that when they laughed, I got upset. I got upset that they laughed. In a way, I felt good that they laughed because it meant that they were still with me. But at the same time, I felt like they weren't They had no way of being aware of what I was going through, and what moment with my grandfather that came into my mind that made me so personally sad and regretful and nostalgic and missing him and missing my grandmother. And that the fall of the flowers got me so upset that I couldn't even do anything right to put those flowers to set them up. So I picked them up and I started hitting them as if I was hitting the grave, because I was missing them so much and I wanted them to be with me. So I'm hitting the flowers. I'm hitting the flowers. Oh, oh, I'm hitting them. I'm hitting them. Releasing all this emotion was coming out of me. And the petal of the flowers, which I didn't even know at the moment, as I was hitting them in my imagination on the grave, but to the spectators, to the floor of the actor studio, all these flowers, petals of different colors of the bouquet of flowers, breaking off of the little branches and falling back on the stage, creating this beautiful carpet of different just, even now when I think of it, and I think of my amazing grandparents, and I don't know, right now with everything that's happening in the world, and I'm just scared of, yeah, my emotions are very raw and they're just kind of bubbling very close to the surface, and I do not know what is going to bring them up. So I'm very surprised. I say always that I'm gonna do this episode and I hope to surprise myself, and if I feel like I have surprised myself, I hope that you are gonna be surprised and you will get something from it. So that's my goal. Then during this whole time, my partner, the other actor, maybe it was after I had started my whole journey from the second entrance and trying to figure my way to the grave, he had also appeared without me knowing that he was going to appear at the time that he did. In addition, he also decided to work on the animal exercise. And I know that I've been saying for the last couple of episodes that I was going to do I was going to demonstrate the animal exercise. He also gave himself another thing to work on in addition to the two that I talked to you about, which is the moment before, trying to figure out an imaginary circumstance in which these two would have met, creating the cemetery on a bare stage using our senses and connecting it to something personal. And the third, for him, he also wanted to work on the animal exercise, which is another way of giving yourself permission to go to the primal self inside of you as a human being, which is difficult to do because we are all being conditioned to be a certain way and to not show and reveal the animalistic side that we all have. You know how everybody talks about, oh, did you see this person and that person on the red carpet, Jessica Chastain and Oscar Isaac, and there was a moment where they were on the red carpet and Oscar Isaac turns to her and instead of kissing her on the cheek, he goes and he licks her arm, and everyone was like, oh my god, did you see the licking of the arm? Oh, it went viral because that's the part of ourselves that we don't show publicly. But as an actor, because we're so trained to open those private moments that we are living and make them public through our characters, so we can show humanity the full spectrum of who we are. It's those hidden parts that the spectators see. Or even if I'm not doing the licking, of another person, but sometimes I feel like I can do that. That's what makes us exciting. That's what makes us mysterious. That's what makes us beautiful. So that animal, my friend, my actor partner, when I was able to see him during my going on with my grave, he looked at me. We looked at each other. He saw me showing a part of myself that was so vulnerable in the way that I was hitting those flowers, and I was sobbing because there was so much that was happening. He himself went to a grave, again, nothing on stage, but imagined by him, went to that particular grave after doing the animal exercise. But here I'm just showing you like the highlights before I do it in practice. And then what he did was unafraid, was something that nobody would do because we would be so embarrassed because it's not allowed. What he did, he went. He went like this. Imagining doing something to someone's grave that you care about, but who maybe hurt you. When I saw him do that, when I saw him giving himself the courage, being courageous enough to give himself that permission to do that with someone's grave that I'm sure meant so much to him. So imagine what he must have gone through, the conflict, the inner conflict that one has to deal with in making that decision to actually say to this person that's there, buried. You might have been someone who was one of the family members or loved one, but you treated me badly or you hurt me, therefore. This is what I know. He peed without peeing, but he actually made the physical gesture as the animal raising the leg up. Those are powerful, powerful, powerful moments because they reveal our humanity in a way that we don't see most of the time, because we usually see the finished product of plays or films. All of that work happen at places unique in the world, one of a kind, grateful to be part of. And maybe now you'll understand the fact that I always say in the beginning of the podcast, I am so proud to be a lifetime member of the Actors Studio, because if I weren't, I would not have been able to know this work. I would not have been able to allow this work to make me who I am today and to help me as a person, just to help me survive a lot of things in my life and dealings as we all are given in life. This kind of acting teaches you how to take on life a little bit better. I always say, you know, the closest manual to living is this technique, this method technique that I believe in so much. And it teaches me, first of all, as myself as a person, before an actress, before an acting coach. When I go, what would I do if I were to be this character, Elena, that I'm talking about right now, if I don't know how to deal with the situation that's happening in my life as Mihaela, you know? I mean, this woman, she was able to go to this grave, and this other character who played that scene with me, he was able to go to his loved one grave the same way that I went to my loved one's grave, and he needed to do what he needed to do as the character, but first of all, he needed to do what he needed to do as the actor. So when you're letting your actor lead you, sometimes the character becomes one that is courageous, because you're courageous to take steps and to do things that to other people, they're gonna raise their eyebrows and they're gonna be like, oh my god, that is so shocking, like why would he or why would she do that? When I looked at the partner, my actor friend who did that, from my crying and his crying, we looked at each other, and what we discovered was, because you have to remember, the objective for us was to discover how these two characters come together. Do they know each other from before the play? And how is that now going to inform the way that he comes in when the play begins and he knocks at the door? So now we have this moment before the moment. We have a backstory. We looked at each other on that stage. And even though I knew him, as he's my friend, because I've known him, I've worked with him on the stage of the Actor Studio before and other times, we looked at each other and we looked with a different insight into the other person's life, as people first, as Mihaela and as he, the person. So now we knew that those characters, when they come together, they were two people who went through an experience today, that day, in session, that was going to lead them into the way that they were going to come together at the house when he knocks on the door. And she says to Luca, I don't want to see anybody. My husband died. I'm going to mourn. But now, this time, when she hears his voice, she recognizes when he said in the cemetery, after these two different experiences happened separately, individually, on different corners of the stage, but still they looked at each other. I looked at him, he looked at me, because we had seen each other in two private moments. We came together already because we both revealed to one another on that stage a common, personal, private moment that had to do with our lives first before the characters. So the gain was enormous. The gain for these two people, for me and for him, and then for the characters. We knew exactly how to enter now into the play, the rhythm play. There's so much more that we gained from that exploration that day on session. And when we finished, Alec Baldwin thought it was a wonderful session and the work was amazing. And I remember he made a comment, something like, I have never seen such a theatrical moment be so cinematic. That was my experience with one of the sessions of the Actor Studio with moderator Alec Baldwin. Wish him and his entire family all the best. And I'm so sorry for the loved ones of the people, of the person who passed on, and the director who's in the hospital. God help all of us, because with everything that's happening in the world, it's like every day we got to celebrate each moment and just be grateful for everything that we do and we have, because everything changes from moment to moment. I was so scared of this pandemic and coronavirus, and then you go and you're happy that you're going on a set of a film, that things are somewhat getting back to normal, and then accidentally, I don't know, we'll find out later, but a prop gun that shoots two people and one gorgeous, beautiful woman is dead. Oh my God. So scary. I have to say that every time I sit down to do something, I always start with a place of I don't know what I'm gonna do, and then by the end of it, I reveal something. I don't think there's other podcast out there that's as revelatory as this is, where I really, really put myself in the spotlight in a way that afterwards I think about it and I'm like, oh my God, I just showed them my ugly side, or I just showed them part of me that's not as finessed as I would like people to know that it is. Thank you so much for being with us. And thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to share. And I hope that you can find something that can help you navigate life just a little bit better. Thank you.